if this government, Hasra government, does not become a serious Hasra government, I'll run for the presidency in 2027, and I'll campaign on what I'm campaigning, and I'm going to win, and your government will lose. So the best thing...
The Deputy Speaker, Farah Maalim, he will seek to run the presidency of this country. I will seek to be his running mate.
I don't want to run for the presidency. I'm too old for it. But if you don't do a good job, I'll run for it.
Honorable Farah Maalim, member for Dadaab.
Honorable Speaker, firstly, I want to congratulate these able, very able young legislators who are the chairs of the Budget Committee and the Finance Committee. They've done a fantastic job. Also wish to congratulate a very old friend of mine, Mbadi, for also giving a lot of professional insights into these debates. We are enriched, much more enriched. I, however, would want to disagree with the chairman of the budget on the issue of borrowing. Mr. Speaker, when you have an organization, a corporation that is insolvent, that is not able to operate because it has a lot of debt, there are a number of ways in which you try and deal with that. One, you can load off that organization and sell it and then pay the debtors or the creditors or the debtors in many different ways. And a number of them, many of them are going to end up not getting paid their debts. The other one is that you pump in more money into this corporation. You load off certain divisions that are not profit-making. You reconstruct the management of the organization, and then you make sure that that company is able to progressively, over a period of time, begin making less losses, finally break even, and then begin making profits, and then finally becoming a very profitable organization and declaring dividends for the shareholders. The Republic of Kenya and the government of Kenya is a corporation, and the people of Kenya are the shareholders. So when we have a problem with debts, I don't think the situation should be that we should not take more debts. You take more debts. You restructure the management of public affairs. You put up more infrastructures. You enable business and all the different sectors of the economy to improve and thrive. And progressively, you're going to make profits, and the country is going to do very well. Every time when there was a Great Depression and the Americans were lining up for soups in the streets, what did Franklin Delano Roosevelt do? He pumped in money into the public sector. Billions and billions. What was called the Great Deal, or the New Deal those days. Today, as we talk, Japan, which is one of the most powerful economies in the country, has a public debt that is 63% of its own GDP. We have a public debt right now, total public debt, which is below 70% of our GDP. I think it's in the 60s, am I right? 62.5. The US has got an economy right now, a GDP of 24 trillion. The total US debt today is 36 trillion. 170% of its own GDP. What I think we should do, when you borrow money, even for your own business, and you use that money to go and marry a second wife or a third wife, or go and put up a big house in Karen, or go and enjoy yourselves, the consequence is bad because you're going to be auctioned. The same is also true for a government. If there's a lot of corruption, a lot of stealing at the highest level of the government itself, like what we have experienced for the last 10 years under Jubilee government, then of course the consequences becomes very bad. But if we're going to change that and have a serious prudency in the management of public finances, then we can go on an ambitious infrastructural development in this country and put up industries and do all sorts of things to make sure that we have an economy that is growing and growing at a very fast rate. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, when we got independence, a few years after we got independence, South Korea, a country where I visited and I had the opportunity of doing a program in my master's in business administration in one of their top universities there. The only thing they had those days was seaweeds as the only resources that country had at time of independence. But they got a very brilliant general called Park Chung-hee who took over through a coup, but then who came to Kenya, borrowed $1 million from the first president of this country, and used that $1 million to travel the whole world, negotiated loans with all the developed world, sent in 3,000 young South Koreans to go and study critical fields, engineering, and came back and implemented it. Today, their GDP is 2.4 trillion. Our GDP is 100 and something billion. Because he did not steal. When you have a political class that it becomes the richest in a country, where you have the richest person in the country or the richest family is the first president's family, the second richest is the second, the third richest is, and progressively like that, then people don't have to go and invest in industries. You go and invest in politics. You go and invest in politics. So those are the areas. We've got 20 million acres of land that is idle, most of it grabbed by people who are politically connected. We have a farming community in this country that's able to turn around things. Take back that land, allocate it to 1 million farmers in Kenya. Each one of them has got a family of 10 or 8. You will see how the economy is going to go over the roof. They will produce and produce big time. We had a coffee industry in which we were producing 143,000 tons 30 years ago. Today we're producing less than 42,000. Why? Because the political class became millers, they became middlemen, they became brokers, they kept on feeding on Kenyans, the poor Kenyans, while our coffee is being sold for 2,000, 3,000 Kenya shillings outside, are being given 50 shillings now for a kilo. The coffee farmers have gone to hell. None other than a government that was there. Madam Speaker, if this country wants to develop, if we are serious as members of parliament who are able to legislate in this country and change things without any fear, without any favor, with a lot of sacrifice and patriotism, we can change this country for the better in the shortest possible time. In the shortest possible time, if you do the right things. We can invest, we can borrow heavily from outside, but invest in the appropriate industrial undertakings in this country so that this country becomes an industrial country in the shortest possible time. But if we're going to invest and take the Euro bonds and steal it, take another bond, go to commercial banks because these are the only people who give kickbacks, go and put up white elephant projects like SGR because there's money that's going to be given in that, then we have a problem. Then we have a serious problem. The problem is not because the nationals of these people are not hardworking. The problem is not because we don't have a potential. The problem is because you have a corrupt, God-forsaken, damned political class. And we are part of that political class, for information. We are part of that political class. So my position is, young man, you have done a good job. The MP for Kandara, am I right? Kiharu, where the great Matiba came from. But for God's sake, go back to the Hassala government and come up with the right programs for Kenyans. We cannot be in a country where the tea farmers, our tea farmers, we still have farms that are going to be in the hands of foreigners and multinationals for the next 1,000 years, and we call ourselves independent. No, take back those farms and allocate it to the same people who have the right, the indigenous people of that area. The smallholders will do a good job. But then if you also go and participate in that and take your own farm and you are a president or a deputy president or God knows who you are.
Let him have 1 minute.
And you think you can do that? That is wrong. That is wrong. And by the way, if you don't do it, I promise you today, if this government, Hasra government, does not become a serious Hasra government, I'll run for the presidency in 2027, and I'll campaign on what I'm campaigning, and I'm going to win, and your government will lose. So the best thing, what you have to do, become a serious Hasra government and address the areas I'm talking about. Give back the tea farms to the indigenous Kalenjins, poor people who have been taken over their land. I'm telling you, don't look at the relationship you're going to have with what do you call the British, the Americans, whatever it is. They came, they took our lands without us giving them a permission. We want it back now. And we can produce and get more money. You have what you call, listen to me carefully. They have a whole chain. The importers are the same company. The exporters are the same company. They have what you call transfer, the resellers.
Your point has been made, Honorable Farah. Thank you. Thank you. You've made your point. Okay, half a minute.
I'm not campaigning. I don't want to run for the presidency. I'm too old for it. But if you don't do a good job, I'll run for it. The same thing. The flowers. Look at follow the flowers. Investigate what happens to the flowers. The prices given, our girls and boys are earning peanuts, and they're coming with those diseases because of the chemicals they use. And the prices that they use for here and the prices that they pay off there. The importer who gives us a very small price is the same organization. With the coffee is the same organization. With the tea is the same organization. The same people who are out there will give us a very cheap transfer, what do you call, pricing. We have the potential. We need that potential ourselves because we need to create the wealth in this country, not create wealth for Europe and other places, for God's sake. And not create the wealth for only 10 Kenyans who are up there. Everyone who comes becomes a billionaire and that's it. No, we don't want to do that. If we don't do that, I'll raise this 50 million Kenyans are not going to sit for another 5 years waiting for you to do what the previous governments did all the time. So Hasra government, you are on notice right now. Move very fast. If you don't move very fast, for God's sake, you're in trouble. And that's what I expect you to move fast. I expect you to achieve these things. We will support this, bottom up, as you put it, so that we can empower ordinary Kenyans and develop wealth and spread wealth out and realize the full potential of this country. We have not realized the full potential of this country.
The Deputy Speaker, Farah Maalim, by whole chance, he will seek to run the presidency of this country. I will seek to be his running mate.